Hello everyone, my name is Srushti Chandanbhai. I am a CA student and pursuing my articleship under Shah and Company. Today I will discuss some sections of capital gain which are crucial for article during their articleship. That is section 54, 54B, 54EC, 54D, 54F, 54G and 54GA. Let's start with section 54. Exemption for capital gain arising on transfer of capital asset. It is applicable to individual and HUF. The assessee sold a long-term capital asset being a residential house property within 1 year before or 2 years after in case of a purchase or within 3 years after in case of a construction and acquire another land, another residential house property. Then exemption under this section is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If capital gain is less than 2 crore and assessee wants to invest it in a 2 residential house property, then exemption under this section is given for both. If it is more than 2 crore, in this case, it is only for one. Moving towards next section, section 54B, exemption for agricultural land. It is applicable to individual and HUF. The asset must be a agricultural land and its short term may be a short term or long term agricultural land. It is divided in two parts, rural agricultural land and urban agricultural land. Rural agricultural land is not a capital asset and not liable for the capital gain. But if it is an urban agricultural land which is used for agricultural purpose since last 2 years, then exemption under this section is available. But if it is not used for agricultural purpose since last 2 years, then exemption under this section is not available. On the other side, and yes, we see that the new acquired land which is rural agricultural land, then it does not makes any difference if it is sold within or after 3 years from the date of transfer. But if it is an urban agricultural land and sold within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and taxable as if it is a short-term capital gain. If it is sold after 3 years, then exemption is still available. Moving towards next section, section 54D, relating to an industrial undertaking which is compulsory acquired by central government. It is applicable to any person. The asset may be a short-term or long-term capital asset, being land or building forming part of an industrial undertaking which is compulsory acquired by the central government, which is used for industrial purpose since last 2 years and acquire another land and building for industrial purpose within 3 years from the date of transfer, then exemption under this section is available. The amount of exemption for this section is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If in this case, assessee sale a new acquired asset within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and taxable as if it is a short-term capital gain. Let's go to the next section, section 54AC, which is regarding to certain bonds. It is applicable to any person. The asset being a land and building which is in the nature of long term and assessee want to sell this and then capital gain is arised and this capital gain is invested in NHI and REC bonds, then from within 6 months from the date of transfer, then amount of exemption is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If these new bonds is sold within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and amount taxable as if it is a long-term capital gain. Moving towards next section, section 54F, which is related to capital asset other than the residential house property. It is applicable to individual and HUF. If assessee sold long-term capital asset other than a residential house property and acquire another residential house property within 1 year before or 2 years after from the date of transfer in case of a purchase or within 3 years after in case of a construction, then assessee can claim exemption under this section. To claim an exemption under this section, it is included one condition. The assessee does not own more than one residential house property, then only he can claim. For this section, amount of exemption is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If this house property is sold within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and taxable as if it is a long-term capital gain. Moving towards next section, section 54G, which is related to an industrial undertaking from urban area to rural area. It is applicable to any person. The asset may be a short-term or long-term capital asset, being the land, building, plant and machinery, in order to shift an industrial undertaking from urban area to rural area and acquire another land, building, plant and machinery in order to shift an industrial undertaking to rural area within 1 year before and 3 years after from the date of transfer. For rest of the asset, this section is not applicable. For example, furniture and fixtures. Amount of exemption for this section is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If this asset is transferred within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and taxable as if it is a short-term capital gain. Moving towards next section, section 54GA, which is related to a special economic zone. It is applicable to any person. The asset may be a short-term or long-term capital asset, being the land, building, plant and machinery, in order to shift an industrial undertaking from urban area to any special economic zone and acquire another land, building, plant and machinery in order to shift an industrial undertaking to any special economic zone within 1 year before and 3 years after from the date of purchase. Then amount of exemption is investment or capital gain, whichever is lower. If this new asset is sold within 3 years of lock-in period, then exemption is withdrawn and taxable as if it is a short-term capital gain. So, I would like to conclude my topic and we'll see examples in the next video. Lastly, I would like to thank C.A. Jitin sir for giving me this opportunity to improving my soft skill. And kindly note that this video is just for an educational purpose. Do not take it as an expert advice. Thank you everyone.